Welcome back to Steve Tag Fishing. Today we're going to talk about the drop shot. Where to use it, when to use it. We'll talk about the rod and reel that I prefer to use. It's probably more of a comfort thing. We'll get into some baits and also how to present the drop shot when you're targeting certain types of fish on weed lines, rock piles, docks, you name it. We're going to get into a little bit of everything today. So what type of fishing rod works best for drop shot fishing? Like I mentioned before, a lot of it is a comfort feel. In my opinion, I prefer a longer rod, preferably something around at least a 7 foot. This one here is a 7.3 Temple Fork Outfitters rod. This is the medium power, which means that it's going to have some good backbone to get a good hook set on those long casts, but also it's got a sensitive enough tip that I can feel structure, feel those weeds, and feel even the slightest of bites. So for me, that's where I feel the most comfortable. As far as the reel goes, this is a 2500 Shimano Stratic spinning reel, and I've got it paired up with some 8-pound fluorocarbon. And a lot of you might be like, oh, well, why don't you use braid? Again, it's a comfort thing. I will use braid certain times when I'm fishing certain conditions or fishing certain types of structure. I don't shy away from it. I just prefer fluorocarbon. Set that down for a second. Thing set aside. The next part I'd like to talk about is the weights. There's primarily two different styles of weights that you can use when drop shot fishing. The first one is going to be a pencil weight. Now, a pencil weight is going to be the most efficient when you're fishing weeds, maybe some structure and things like that, and it's specifically designed to work through weeds, work through rock piles, and work through maybe some wood if that's what you're fishing. The other one is going to be the ball weight. Now this one is probably the most common to use. It's a great one just for all-around fishing. It doesn't really get through the weeds or the rocks very well. Now if you're fishing a rock bed, definitely use this one. But all-around weight is going to be the ball weight. And choosing the weight that you're going to put on your bait, you want to start as small as you can get. The smaller the weight, the more natural that bait is going to look in the water. Now if you're fishing 40, 50, 60 feet of water, definitely move up to a ½ ounce, even a 3/4 ounce. Or if you're fishing current, you probably want to use a ½ ounce or 3/4 ounce. So look at your graph, understand what type of water that you're fishing, and you should be able to make a good decision from there. But always start small and work your way up. Some hooks. So there's tons of different hooks on the market. Tons of them. Really, all that you're looking for is something that's going to present a nice straight edge on the edge of the barb of the hook. That's all you're looking for. This is a number 2 Gamakatsu. Bass fishing, you're probably going to use a 2, 3, maybe 4 for most baits. You don't want a hook that's too big with a small bait because it's just not going to look natural. You don't want something that's too small with a small bait where, again, it doesn't look natural. You can't get a good hook set. So a number 2 to number 3 circle style hook is going to be probably the best route to go. Now, the other option is to use straight shanked worm hook. And notice again how straight the edge is on there. Now why would you use this big hook while you're drop shot fishing? Well, talked about this pencil weight before. Using this pencil weight with a straight shanked worm hook, you're able to turn your drop shot style fishing into weedless style fishing. And it really adds to your arsenal, which is ultimately going to add more fish in your box. So you basically do it just like you would any other Texas rig, just like that. And now this thing is 100% weedless. You can cast this thing around docks, you can cast this thing in thick weeds, you can cast it anywhere that you want where there's structure, and you're not going to have to worry about getting hung up. Versus this route, you're going to have that exposed hook and probably going to be using a ball style weight, which is going to get hung up ultimately. Talk about how you tie the drop shot and the hook on itself. So you're going to start with your hook and your sinker. What you're going to do is tie your knot onto the hook. Leave yourself about 6, 8, maybe 10 inches of tag line. And it's very important that you take that tag line and run it back through the eyelid of the hook. So this tag line is going to be threaded through the eyelid of the hook, pointing down. You don't want to not thread it because that's going to make your line twist, and it's just not going to present the bait in the water naturally. So once you've got this done, you've got your tag end, you can go ahead and attach your line to your sinker. Now these weights here, it's kind of cool. They've got inserts in there. I don't know if you can see that, but you basically thread your line through that and just kind of pull it up tight. I'll generally do just a couple slip knots on there to make sure that it is in fact on there, so you don't go to cast and the bait goes, or the sinker goes flying in the water and you lose it. So once you've done that, you're ready for some baits. So let's get into the baits. I typically use maybe 5 or 6 different kinds of baits when I'm drop shot fishing, depending on if I'm bed fishing, smallmouth fishing, largemouth fishing. That's going to really determine what bait I'm going to use. So this is an Erie darter, probably my go-to bait. I've generally always start off throwing an Erie darter. Resembles a minnow type of bait. So what you do, take the end of it, and most baits are going to have, you want to aim for the center of the bait. Take it and measure out the distance between your hook and the top of that bait, because the goal of this is to not have the hook showing, but to just have it barely tipping out so you can barely feel a little prick on the edge of this bait. Thread it through, and it's going to look just like that. So this bait is sitting parallel with the straight edge of that hook, and when it sinks down to the bottom, you got the weight here and the bait, and that is sitting 100% natural, and the fish, they have to have it. Versus doing something like this, and you can tell that bait is just not going to look natural in the water. So remember, when you're threading these on, measure the hook from where it starts to turn up to where you want it to barely pop through. Start down and thread it up so you can barely feel it on the tip. And that's how you're going to want to present the bait to the fish. Getting into a few different styles of baits. We talked about this Texas rig one. This is just a Zoom 8-inch stick bait basically. You can throw a 10-inch worm on here, you can throw a Cinco on here, you can throw just about anything that you want weedless, even little swim baits, big swim baits, you name it, you can make them weedless on here. I typically throw a 10-inch worm on there, or even a Cinco is probably most common ones that I'll use. But you got to go with some KVDs. These things, they're amazing on the drop shot. They're called a dream shot for a reason. It's a dream to fish, if you want to say it that way. But these produce lots of fish. They got tons of different colors of them. About $4 or $5 a piece. Get yourself some of these. They flat out work. Color wise, stick to some basics until you really understand the water that you're fishing, the bait fish in there. The basics are going to be just a green pumpkin or a watermelon or maybe a watermelon red. Even these ones here are the dirt. That's a pretty good common color to use. Another one is going to be, again, these little swim baits. These are Reaction Innovation. This is a morning dawn color. This works good in low light conditions. Granted, it looks pink, it looks goofy, or even bed fishing too. This is something that you can see on the bed until it disappears in the fish's mouth. So brighter colors definitely work good. I tend to use these in clearer water, again in the morning. But you can see though, that's just a minnow style bait, and presented on that hook, it just looks so natural. The other one's going to be these jackals. These things are just a crosstail shad, again in common colors. They're very salty, kind of stinky. But again, it's just a small 2-3 inch bait that mimics some sort of bait fish, dying minnow when you cast it out. The other one that I use a ton are going to be little 3 to 4 inch swim baits. And again, I mean, you thread this swim bait up on there, and there's really not anything that could look more like a bait fish than this right here. And it makes it so versatile because I'm able to cast this out. If there's fish suspended, I'm able to cast this out and reel it in. So I know this bait's going to sink probably a foot every single second, maybe 2 feet every single second. So if I'm fishing 35 feet of water and there's fish suspended in 22 feet, I'm going to cast this thing out, count down maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and just start reeling this thing in. And now, basically, I've got a swim bait or a crankbait style bait, but I'm still drop shot fishing. And that's what makes drop shot fishing so unique. The main purpose of a drop shot is to really target specific areas where you are confident that there's going to be fish and really let that bait sit there. And with this weight on the bottom, that gives you that opportunity to do that. So you can cast it out, let it sink down to the bottom, and just kind of twitch it and let it sit there. It may take 20, 30 seconds, but you moving that bait around like that, or really not even moving it, just the water itself is going to move that bait. That fish looks at that, or those fish look at that for 20, 30 seconds, they're going to have to eat it. I promise you. Drop shot fishing is so versatile. Take advantage of all the tools, that I talked about today, and I really, really think that it's going to help you guys catch more fish. So moving forward, I'm going to try to do one of these videos every single day, for the next week or two. Really just break down different baits, different fishing strategies, and help you guys catch more fish. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here, get some dinner, starving, see my family. So that's it, guys. Remember, always set that hook. We'll see you next time.